She unzipped the wrong bag. That's where it all began. I wasn't supposed to know where she was that day, and I wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the VIP lounge. But I was there, hiding behind a fake wall of confidence, clutching the receipt for the ring I never planned to give her this way. I had slipped the ring and my handwritten note into her leather tote the night before, while she was asleep next to me, phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline I could never compete with. She walked in like she owned the place, heels clicking, that blazer I'd never seen before, hugging her shoulders like it was made for someone else's eyes. She dropped her bag onto the table and unzipped it in one quick motion. I don't know why my pulse started pounding like that. Maybe because I realized this was my last shot. I thought I'd see a smile when she found the ring, maybe tears. Instead, I watched her face tighten like she'd just found a live grenade. Her eyes darted around, scanning for someone, anyone. Then she grabbed her other bag, a slim black thing I'd never seen in our house, and shoved the ring and note into it like she was hiding evidence. That's when it hit me. That black bag didn't look like hers. It didn't even look like something she'd buy. There was a faint tag on the side, something foreign, something expensive. It was almost like she'd borrowed it, or stolen it. I know I'm not supposed to jump to conclusions, but you don't see your wife handle a ring, your ring, like it's radioactive without feeling your gut twist. She zipped it shut, stood up, and walked out without even glancing inside her tote again. I followed, staying far enough behind that she wouldn't notice, but close enough to see the way she kept touching the black bag, like she was checking if something was still there. And that's when I saw the man. He was waiting just outside the lounge, leaning casually against the wall, wearing a suit that screamed money and trouble. She smiled at him. That smile, the one I hadn't seen in months. I had no plan when I followed her out of that lounge. None. I wasn't thinking about how insane I probably looked, skulking behind pillars like a nervous wreck. All I knew was that I had to see who this man was, the one who earned that smile, the kind of smile she used to save for me when we first got married. He was leaning against the wall like he owned the whole building, a man in a gray suit so sharp it could cut glass. His watch probably cost more than my car, and when she walked up to him, he didn't even bother with a hello. He just reached for her hand like they'd been doing this forever. I froze. My legs felt like concrete. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to march over there and demand answers, but I couldn't move. I stood there, my heart hammering in my chest, as she handed him the black bag, the same one that now held my ring and the pathetic note I wrote. My fingers curled into fists. Why was she giving him the bag? What was in there that I didn't know about? I tried to inch closer without being seen, pretending to scroll on my phone, but I managed to catch just one sentence from him. He leaned in close and whispered something that sent my stomach plummeting. Did he find out yet? Marissa's face went pale. She shook her head so slightly I almost missed it, then forced a laugh that didn't sound like her at all. In that moment, I didn't care about the ring or the note anymore. I cared about that question. Did he find out yet? Find out what? My brain spun in 1,000 directions, each thought worse than the last. I wasn't brave enough to confront them. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out my phone and took a shaky photo of them together, like some amateur detective in a bad movie. My hands were trembling so much I almost dropped the phone. They walked off together toward the private elevators. I followed, keeping my distance, my mind screaming at me that I'd regret this. And I did. Because when those elevator doors opened, I saw something that nearly made me pass out. Her scarf slipped, revealing a flash of that hidden phone again, but this time I saw its screen light up. A message. One single line. Don't let him ruin this. I don't know who him is. I don't know if it's me or someone else. All I know is that I've never felt more like a stranger in my own life. I told myself to stop. I told myself I'd gone far enough, that nothing good would come from following them. But my legs didn't listen. They moved on their own, pulling me toward those polished elevator doors that had just swallowed my wife and the man in the gray suit. I pressed the button and stood there, sweating like I'd run a marathon, my heart beating so hard I thought someone might hear it. I didn't even know what I would do if I caught up to them. Was I going to confront them? Demand answers? Beg for an explanation like some desperate fool? The doors opened and I stepped inside, still tasting that line I saw on her secret phone. Don't let him ruin this. Ruin what? What was she protecting so badly that she had to hide another phone, another life? As the elevator climbed, I stared at my own reflection in the mirrored walls, and I barely recognized the man looking back at me. I looked like someone who'd already lost. The elevator stopped on the 24th floor. My hands were shaking as I stepped out, and I almost turned back. But then I heard her laugh. It wasn't her real laugh, the one that starts deep in her chest and bubbles up when she's truly happy. No, this was sharp, controlled, and fake, like she was performing for someone. I followed the sound down a long hallway lined with closed doors, each one silent except for the one halfway down, where I could hear voices. I crept closer, feeling like a complete lunatic, pressing my ear to the cold wooden door. Her voice was muffled, but I could make out a few words, something about timing and keeping everything quiet until it's over, and then his voice, smooth, calm, like he was used to being in control. He said, "You know he's going to find out eventually. You can't hide forever." My stomach churned. Was he talking about me? Were they talking about me like I was some clueless idiot who'd already lost her? I could barely breathe, and that's when I noticed the door wasn't locked. The latch was slightly loose, and the temptation to push it open burned through me like fire. I reached for the handle, but just as I was about to turn it, the elevator dinged behind me. I jumped back, panicked, and ducked into an alcove just in time to see another man step out of the elevator. This one wearing a hotel uniform, carrying a key card and a sealed envelope. He walked straight to that door, knocked once, and said, "Room service." Room service? She told me she was meeting investors. What kind of investors order room service in a hotel suite at noon? I watched as the man in the gray suit opened the door just wide enough to slip the envelope inside. He glanced down the hall, his eyes narrowing for a second, like he sensed something. I held my breath, frozen in the shadows, praying he wouldn't see me. When the door shut, I knew I couldn't keep playing detective in the hallway. I needed more than whispers and guesses. I needed the truth, even if it burned everything to the ground. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo I'd taken of them together. My finger hovered over the send button. I thought about sending it to her, to ask her what the hell she was doing. But a sick feeling stopped me. What if she lied? What if she smiled and told me I was overreacting while standing in that suite with him? I needed more, something undeniable. So I did the one thing I never imagined I'd do. I waited. I crouched in that alcove like a coward, counting every second, listening to the faint hum of the hallway air vents, waiting for them to come out. And when the door finally opened, what I saw next made my knees nearly buckle. The door opened slowly, and my breath caught in my throat. I expected Marissa to step out, maybe with that smug smile I hadn't seen in years, maybe with that man's hand on the small of her back, like I was nothing but a fool. But it wasn't her. A different woman walked out, someone I'd never seen before. She was tall, wearing dark sunglasses even though we were inside, and she had that same black bag slung over her shoulder. My ring and my note were in there. I was sure of it. For a moment, I was so stunned I couldn't move. What the hell was going on? Where was my wife? My mind tried to piece together the fragments of the last few days, but it was like holding water in my hands. Everything was slipping away. The woman with the sunglasses didn't even glance in my direction. She walked quickly down the hallway, her heels clicking like a ticking clock, and disappeared into the elevator. I wanted to run after her, demand to know why she had my wife's things, but I didn't. Something about the way she moved, too calm, too practiced, made me hesitate. And then I heard voices inside the room again. A man's voice, low and sharp. "She's gone. Get ready." Gone? Get ready for what? My chest felt like it was being crushed by invisible hands. I moved closer to the door, every instinct screaming at me that I was in over my head, but I needed to see. I needed to know. Through the narrow gap between the door and the frame, I saw him, the man in the gray suit, pacing the room. His phone was pressed to his ear, and he was saying something about the transfer and making sure it can't be traced. This wasn't about cheating, was it? This felt bigger, darker. I had come here thinking I'd catch my wife having an affair, and instead, I was standing outside a hotel room, listening to a man talk like he was orchestrating some kind of deal that didn't belong in the daylight. And where was Marissa? My phone buzzed in my pocket, nearly making me jump out of my skin. It was a text from her. "Meeting went well. Flying home tonight. Miss you." I stared at the message until my vision blurred. She was lying. She wasn't in a meeting. She wasn't anywhere near where she said she'd be. I don't know what possessed me in that moment, but I made a decision I'll regret for the rest of my life. I waited until the man in the gray suit turned his back. Then I pushed the door open just enough to see the inside of the room. It wasn't what I expected. There was no romantic setup, no candlelight, no champagne. Instead, there were documents spread out on the table, a laptop open with lines of code scrolling on the screen, and a small locked case that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. I must have made a sound, a breath, a creak, something, because suddenly the man turned, his eyes locking onto mine like a wolf spotting prey. The moment his eyes met mine, the world shrank to just the two of us, me standing half hidden in the doorway, my pulse pounding in my ears, and him frozen mid-step, his phone still pressed to his ear. For a second, neither of us moved. It was like one of those moments in movies where everything slows down, and you realize you've just made the worst mistake of your life. Then his expression shifted, not surprise, not even anger, but something worse. Recognition. It was as if he already knew who I was, like he'd been expecting me all along. "Clive," he said, and my blood ran cold. How did he know my name? My mind scrambled to process it. Did Marissa tell him about me? Why would she? He hung up the phone slowly, almost casually, and gave me a thin smile. "You shouldn't be here." His voice was calm, but there was a weight to it that made my knees weak. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but all that came out was a pathetic, "Where is she?" I sounded desperate, broken, like a man who had already lost. He tilted his head, studying me like I was some curious insect crawling across his floor. "She's where she needs to be," he replied. "And if you care about her, you'll leave now." That should have been my cue to turn around, to run, to pretend none of this was happening. But I couldn't. My eyes darted to the table behind him, to the black bag with my ring and note sticking out just enough for me to see. Something snapped inside me. "That's my wife's bag," I said, my voice trembling. "Where is she? What are you doing with her stuff?" He sighed, like I was an annoying child interrupting something important. "You really don't understand what's going on, do you?" He took a step closer, and I instinctively stepped back. But I didn't leave. I couldn't. I needed answers, even if they crushed me. "This isn't about you," he said quietly. "It never was." Before I could respond, there was movement in the room. A figure stepped out from behind the curtain, and my stomach dropped when I saw her. Marissa. She looked different, like a stranger wearing my wife's face. Her hair was tied back, her makeup heavier than usual, and she wasn't wearing her wedding ring. For a moment, we just stared at each other, both frozen in place. "Clive," she said finally, her voice flat and unrecognizable. "You need to leave." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Leave? That's all you have to say? Who is this guy? What's going on?" My voice cracked, and I hated how pathetic I sounded, but I couldn't stop. I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't prepared for the look in her eyes. Not anger, not guilt, but something like pity. She stepped forward, placing herself between me and the man in the gray suit, like she was protecting him. "You shouldn't have come here," she said softly. "You don't understand what you're walking into." "Then explain it to me," I shouted, louder than I meant to. My voice echoed in the hallway, and for a split second, I thought I saw something flicker in her expression. Fear. But before I could press her, the man in the gray suit stepped closer and closed the door behind me with a quiet click. I was inside now, trapped with them. The air in the room felt heavy, like the walls were closing in. I glanced at the table again, the documents, the laptop, the locked case. There was something on the screen, some kind of list with numbers and names I didn't recognize. "What is this?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Marissa, what the hell is going on?" She looked at me for a long moment, then said something I'll never forget. "Clive, it's not what you think, but if you stay here, everything you know, everything we've built, will burn." And that's when I realized I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. I was standing in the middle of something far bigger and far darker than I could have imagined. For a few seconds I just stood there, staring at Marissa as if I didn't even know her anymore. The way she looked at me, calm but almost pleading, sent a chill down my spine. My mind was trying to catch up, racing through every moment of the past few weeks. Every time she came home late, every forced smile, every "I'm just tired" excuse. All of it suddenly felt like pieces of a much larger puzzle that I had never been meant to see. The man in the gray suit didn't say a word. He leaned against the table, watching me with a kind of cold patience that made me feel like a cornered animal. Marissa stepped closer, her voice low and steady, like she was trying to soothe me. "Clive, listen to me. What you think is happening isn't what's happening. I'm not cheating on you. This isn't about that. But if I tell you everything, you won't be able to unhear it. You'll be part of it, and I don't want that for you." Her words hit me harder than any confession of betrayal could have. I stared at her, my mouth dry. "What are you talking about? You've been lying to me for weeks. You've been meeting him, with that bag, and you expect me to believe this isn't what it looks like?" My voice was cracking, sounding more like a plea than a question. Marissa's eyes flickered to the man in the gray suit, as if waiting for his permission. He gave a slight nod, and she sighed. "Do you remember last winter, when that company approached me about consulting for their new tech project?" I nodded stiffly, though I barely remembered the details, just that she'd been excited about the opportunity. "It wasn't just consulting," she said. "They brought me into something much bigger, something that isn't exactly legal." The room felt colder. My stomach twisted as I tried to process her words. "Illegal? What are you saying, Marissa? What the hell are you involved in?" She hesitated, glancing at the documents on the table, the laptop with the endless strings of numbers. "It started with data," she said slowly. "They wanted my help with data models, analytics. It sounded harmless at first. But then I found out they were using it to track people. Not customers, Clive. People. I tried to back out, but they don't let people just walk away. That's when she gestured to the man in the gray suit, showed up. The man smiled faintly, but it wasn't the kind of smile that reached the eyes. It was cold, like he was daring me to make the next move. "So, what?" I said, my voice shaking. "You're stuck in some illegal operation and just didn't tell me? You lied over and over while I thought—" I couldn't finish the sentence. I couldn't say it out loud, that I thought she was in love with someone else, that I'd been driving myself insane imagining her with another man. Marissa's expression softened, and for the first time, she looked like the woman I'd married. "I wanted to protect you," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "If they think you know anything, they'll come after you too. That's why I kept it secret. That's why I hid the phone. It's not for him. It's for them." I turned to the gray-suited man, anger and fear boiling together in my chest. "And who exactly are they?" He tilted his head, almost amused by my question. "The kind of people you don't want to know about," he said. "But now you're here, and now you do, which means we have a problem." The silence that followed was suffocating. I could feel the walls pressing in on me, the weight of something I didn't understand settling on my shoulders. "Marissa," I whispered, "tell me this isn't real. Tell me you're not—" She shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "I wish I could, Clive. I really do." And that's when the laptop pinged with a sound that made both of them tense up. A message appeared on the screen in bold red letters. "They're coming, now." The room seemed to freeze around that message, the harsh red glow from the laptop screen, painting everything in an eerie light. My breath caught in my throat as I read the words again. "They're coming now." I didn't know who they were, but the way both Marissa and the man in the gray suit reacted made my blood run cold. He snapped the laptop shut so quickly it was like he wanted to erase the message from existence. Marissa's hand trembled as she grabbed the black bag, the same bag with my ring and my stupid note buried somewhere inside, and slung it over her shoulder as if it was the most important thing in the world. "What does that mean?" "Who's coming?" I demanded, my voice cracking. I hated how weak I sounded, like I was just a bystander in my own life. The man in the gray suit didn't even look at me at first. He moved fast and efficient, collecting the papers from the table, shoving them into a folder, and then locking the small metal case with a click that echoed through the room. Only then did he glance up at me, his expression grim but maddeningly calm. "You need to leave, now," he said. "You were never supposed to be here. If you stay, you're not just going to ruin whatever's left of your marriage. You're going to ruin your life. Do you understand me?" His words cut like a knife, but it wasn't the kind of threat you could shrug off. It sounded like a promise, like a statement of fact. Marissa stepped toward me, her face pale but determined. "Clive, please. For once in your life, just listen. You need to trust me, even if you hate me right now. Go home. Pretend you saw nothing. I'll explain everything when it's safe." Her voice cracked on the last word, and for a moment I saw something raw in her eyes. Fear, maybe even regret. But I couldn't leave. Not now. I shook my head, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. "No, you've been lying to me for weeks. You think I can just walk away after finding you here? With him? With all of this? I don't care who's coming. I'm not leaving until you tell me the truth." Her shoulders slumped, and she gave me a look I'll never forget, like she was silently apologizing for something I couldn't yet understand. "You don't get it," she whispered. "The truth won't save you." And then, before I could respond, we heard it. The sound of footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, deliberate, getting closer with each passing second. The man in the gray suit moved to the door, peeking through the peephole. His jaw tightened. "Too late," he muttered. "They're here." My heart was hammering so loudly I could barely hear the rest. Marissa grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the side of the room, her grip surprisingly strong. "Whatever happens," she said, her voice low and urgent, "don't say a word. Don't tell them anything." The next moment felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The door burst open, and 3 men in dark, plain clothes stepped inside, as if they owned the place. No uniforms, no badges, but the way they carried themselves screamed authority. The kind of authority that doesn't care about rules. The tallest one, a bald man with a scar across his temple, scanned the room with cold, calculating eyes, and then fixed his gaze on me. "Who's this?" he asked, his voice deep and grating. "I thought we said no surprises." The man in the gray suit didn't flinch. "He's leaving," he said simply. "Now." But the bald man's gaze stayed on me, like he was dissecting me with his eyes. "I don't think so. He's seen too much." For a split second, I thought my legs might give out. I looked at Marissa, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. Her silence told me everything. I was in over my head, and whatever this was, I'd already crossed a line I couldn't step back from. The room felt like it was shrinking, the air heavy and electric with tension. The bald man's eyes never left me, and for a terrifying moment, I thought this was it. That whatever game Marissa had been playing, I'd just become the expendable piece on the board. I could feel my pulse in my throat as I stood there, frozen, while the man in the gray suit and the bald stranger exchanged a look that said more than words ever could. But then, Marissa stepped forward. I'd never seen her like this before. She didn't look scared anymore. She looked resolute. "He doesn't know anything," she said, her voice firm. "He's not part of this. You don't touch him. If you have a problem, you deal with me." The bald man tilted his head, amused. "Brave. But that's not how this works." Marissa took the black bag off her shoulder and slammed it onto the table. "Everything you want is in there. The data, the access codes, everything. You leave him out of this or we're done. Do you hear me?" The man in the gray suit, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "She's right. We stick to the plan. We don't need him." He looked at me with a strange kind of sympathy. "You're lucky, Clive. You have someone willing to risk everything for you. Take her advice. Go home." My mind was spinning, but in that moment, all I saw was Marissa. Not the lies, not the secrecy, just her, standing there, fighting for me in a way I didn't understand, but desperately needed to believe. Something inside me broke, but it wasn't anger anymore. It was the realization that, despite everything, I still loved her. The bald man finally gave a sharp nod. "Fine, he's clean. But if he talks..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Marissa grabbed my hand and practically dragged me out of the room before I could say anything stupid. We didn't speak until we were outside, standing in the cool air of the parking lot, both of us breathing hard like we'd just escaped a fire. "Marissa," I said finally, my voice raw. "What the hell was that? What are you involved in?" She looked at me, tears in her eyes. "Something I'm going to end for good. I made mistakes, Clive, big ones. But I swear to you, none of this was about us. I love you. I've always loved you. I just didn't want you to get burned because of my choices." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to shout. But all I felt was relief. She was here. She was real. And somehow, despite the chaos, we were still standing together. I pulled her into my arms, and for the first time in months, I felt like we were both fighting for the same thing. In the weeks that followed, Marissa cut ties with whatever shadowy mess she'd been tangled in. It wasn't easy. There were tense nights, whispered phone calls, and moments where I thought we'd lose everything. But she kept her promise. She walked away from all of it. We walked away together. And the ring, that stupid silver ring I'd slipped into her bag, she started wearing it again. Not because it was fancy, but because it reminded us of who we were before the lies, before the fear. Two people who had nothing but each other. And somehow, that was still enough.